Now remember, if you click on the final MTA exam, which is kind of intimidating, I know, but if you click on that link, it's going to show you all the study information. And I'm going to go to this SQL page here. That's just, again, a bunch of different links. And we want this very first thing, the SSG DB admin individual without crop. So that stands for something study guide. And I'm just going to open that student study guide. That's what that first S is. Duh, it's early. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down to the first section. And in chapter 1, we're going to look at the scenario and then read the questions and kind of discuss them before we scroll on to look at the answers. So remember, don't look at the answers right away. Let's think about it first beforehand. We're going to be taking this database administration certification exam if you look at the overview of all of the Microsoft exams. So this database administration fundamentals exam kind of says that you're an authorized, valid, entry-level database administrator, and Microsoft recommends that these MCTS exams would be something that you'd be interested in if you were wanting to be a little bit more than entry level. So if you were looking for a job in business intelligence, database development, database engineering, and database administration, and a lot of the security administration positions are asking for people to have database administration experience also. So that's getting to be something that's crossing over into that security area. We're going to scroll on down to this first section, understanding core database concepts. I'll read the first section and then I'll popcorn pick somebody for the next section. And if you get picked, just read your section and then you'll pick somebody for the next one. We have a scenario here where high school student Rajesh, I hope I'm saying that one, Patel works part-time in his dad's cycle shop in Pune, India. Pune was the first city in India to have dedicated lanes for cycles. Raj's dad currently keeps track of his inventory using pencil and paper. Ordering parts and accessories or counting inventory takes several days. Raj has taken a database management class in school, and he realizes that his dad's business could benefit greatly by implementing a database management system. Raj needs to review a few basic concepts before he starts and has made a list of topics he knows will be important in the first steps of the project. Now, it sounds kind of far-fetched, but we often have people in our database class who mention parents having businesses or family businesses that are all still completely run with Excel. Well, Excel is a step up from paper and pencil, but depending on how it's implemented, it may not be a huge step. You know, it might still have a lot of manual aspects to it, a lot of manual lining things up and matching things up. So we always want to be looking at moving forward. So first of all, be thinking about what Raj's requirements are here and what kind of system he wants to create. And then identify tables that Raj might create for his database. What do you think? What would be good? Should I have a table for each part? Like I should have a cycle table and a dumb helmet table and a really stupid biking glove table? Are those the kinds of tables I should have? Where I have a separate table definition for every kind of part that I'm going to have? Or should I have one table that just holds everything? Harry carry, I don't worry about it. Or should I have a parts table, a table about different bicycles, and a table about different accessories? What do you guys think?
I'd probably say, in this case, I'd probably say D.
A. What's everybody else think? Sound good? Sound good? Sound reasonable? I think that sounds reasonable. That sounds like the best answer. What about number 2? Identify the fields that Raj should use for column headings of the parts table. Do we want part number, part name, cycle number, and cycle name? Or do we want part number and quantity sold, part number, part name, quantity, color, and cycle identifier? So we're talking about, first of all, the parts table. So what do you think would be the best list of data elements for a parts table? Yes? C? What do you think, Becky? Someone stole your seat. They're sitting as partners. It's in groups, so. I just interrupted them and made them look at the study guide. C, does that sound good to everybody? Does that sound good? It sounds good to me. I think that's the best answer. Number 3, what is the name of the data located at the intersection of a row and a column? In Excel, it would be a cell, right? What is it in the database land? Field. Everybody agree? Good. Looking at the answers, everything looks great. When you're taking your exam, one thing that you can do before you start is a brain dump. So that means that I can give you a piece of paper. You can't use your own piece of paper, it's very particular. But I can give you a piece of paper and you can write some things down on the piece of paper to refer to while you're taking the exam if there's something that you think you're going to need to refer to repeatedly. This is something that's going to come up over and over and over in your exam, probably, depending on which version you get. But a field is one data element. A column, of course, is our attribute for a row or a record. A row is equivalent to a record. A table is consisting of rows and columns, and a record is very equivalent to a row. Said it about 7 different ways there, but those are really, really important concepts. So a row equals a record, a column equals a field, and they will ask you that repeatedly. So in many different ways. That's one of those things that it's very nice to just write those 4 words down. Column equals field, row equals record. Okay, next section. Who do I want? Let's see. I'm going to pick on somebody back there. I want to see who's got their. Joey, do you have the Zoom session going?
The next step for Raj in the design of the database to streamline his father's cycle business is to determine the most useful relationships between tables. He knows that to create a relational database because it will be important to conduct searches by using data in one table to find additional data in another table. Figuring out a design that best meets the needs of the cycle shop is a critical step. While reviewing his current business requirements, he realizes that he needs to add another table to include the suppliers for the parts of the cycles. This new table requires Raj to update the parts table to include a foreign key to the suppliers table. What is the relationship between the supplier table and the parts table?
B. Why did you pick that, Edward?
Because one supplier could, they could purchase a multitude of a lot of different parts from one supplier.
That's correct. Does everybody agree? That seems like the best relationship. That number 2, Joey.
What is a good foreign key for the relationship between the cycle table and the parts table?
So we're looking at the cycle table. What would be a good foreign key for its relationship to the parts table? A. Not C?
No, not B.
Not
must be,
C.
because you're usually going to have one cycle with a bunch of different parts. So
We
you
want-
put
we
your
want-
cycle model number in your.
Look at it
part.
closely. We want A because it is the cycle table that we want to relate back to the parts table. Is that correct? We better look at the answers. We have a cycle and parts. We have, let's think about this relationship. Which one are we talking about? Because just looking at it at the outset, Seth could be right, I could be right. For a cycle, we would have many parts, right?
It's a one-to-many relation.
So it has to be the foreign key in the parts table that relates back to the cycle. Is that correct? Or does our cycle relate to our part? We don't know for sure, but we know that I'm going to look forward. We know that. What do we know? We know that the model number may not be a unique key. So the only valid field here is part number. So you are absolutely right, Seth, and I'm absolutely right. And we don't have enough information to know which table's foreign key they're referring to. But if we look at this list of fields, we can see that the only valid unique key would be our part number. Because our cycle model number isn't necessarily a valid unique key, right? Because we can have a CR80 in a Honda and a CR80 in a Suzuki or something. We can't guarantee that. But we can guarantee our part number.
You can't
So,
necessarily guarantee that on the part number too, for the same reason though. They might have different companies with the same part numbers as well. If the cycles can come from different companies but have the same model number, then the parts can have.
but looking at these three answers, that would be the most likely to be a valid unique key, because we can only go on the information we've been given. And so we're going to try to find the best answer, even though you're absolutely right. We still could have questions about it. The stored.
Where they're getting it, it's usually a combination of the model number and whatever their orientation system is.
Yeah, you usually have more control over that.
Yeah, it's usually
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
It's the store controls the number.
yes. But all of those are absolutely valid points. So, and remember, just go with your gut and what you're thinking, because there are a lot of valid points sometimes when you're looking at a question. So, number 3, what is the suggested primary key for the accessory table? Looking at the same type of thing, what do you think would be the best? The number? Probably. And again, we're having to kind of guess, but we know that the name is not good. We can throw that out right away. And so usually a number is going to be our best choice. They're wanting to just remind you that primary key is a value that's unique. So that's what we're focusing on looking at there, is that unique primary key. So good, definitely. The test is very straightforward, but sometimes you get questions like that. Good, good, good. Okay, Joey, who do you pick next for this wonderful scenario? Stuff sticking in me.
Launch has a cycle database set up for exact cycle shop in India. The next step is to work with his dad to learn what operations he needs to perform with the database. These are called user requirements. His dad needs the new application to perform these initial tasks. Other requirements will be defined later. Create various inventory reports. Produce the sales reports by cycle model, price, and so on. Add new inventory to the system as it arrives. Change the cost of the cycles and parts as necessary. Remove the cycles from the database when they're sold. What data manipulation language command must be used to indicate that a cycle was sold and should be removed from the cycle table?
I hear it all over. AAA, is that right?
What command is used to report on the current on-hand quantity of red cycles?
So let's look at those. What about C?
Fine as a fuel.
Throw it out, right? It's not even valid at all. So that leaves A and B.
A is missing a from statement. It doesn't know where it's pulling that information from.
So throw it out.
So it would be B.
B, very good. All right, what about number 3?
How is a new cycle added in the cycles table in the database?
Again, is B valid?
No.
No. So that leaves us A and C. Why?
It doesn't have values.
Values. Very good, very good. Who's next?
Raj is making excellent progress automating his dad's cycle shop. He has reduced the amount of paperwork and provided more accurate information for his dad to maintain a current inventory. As a result of the automation, his dad has decided he wants to use the website to advertise and sell cycles. Raj is in charge of the next phase of this exciting exciting change to the cycle shop business. Raj immediately realizes that the current database schema needs to be changed. If they're going to allow users to buy from the internet, he needs to have photos of all their products, including cycles, accessories, and parts. Which DDL statement command can Raj use to add a new file to the cycle table and store the file name of the photo?
Okay, let's approach it again. Which one is B bad? Yeah, throw it out. So that leaves A and C. Which one?
A is the one that would actually work, I believe,
Why is that?
because C doesn't specify what we're altering.
Exactly. And C does specify it, but in
No,
the
it doesn't.
wrong order,
That's
right?
fine, but it's in the wrong order.
But see how much whenever you're looking at the SQL code, it's so much easier if you kind of eliminate the bad options and then compare what's left, and then you can see really easily what keywords are missing instead of accidentally picking one that looks right, because all of the ones that say alter could look right. But if you do this kind of process of elimination, then you'll for sure end up with the correct one. It's just a little bit safer than picking one that looks right. What about number 2?
An example of the previous question: what effect does the word role have when adding a new cycle to the table?
Oh,
Should be B, right?
Should be B.
it just means that you don't have to put something there if you don't want to.
Great. What about number 3?
What is the main difference between DML and D and DDL?
What do you think? Obviously, they don't accomplish the same task. We wouldn't have 2 separate syntaxes. That's one thing about SQL. We don't have redundant code like that, like some languages do.
C is incorrect.
C is
Drop
incorrect.
To drop the table altogether.
Okay, so throw it out. So does B look correct then? Yeah, looks good. Perfect. Okay, let's create some objects. Brendan, who's going to start with this first red scenario?
Neil Homley's son, Yan, is taking a programming course at school and is very fights on selecting a project class. You, Hom, am I saying that right?
Good.
Suggests that Yan create a program to help organize her seed collection that she has accumulated over years. Yan likes the idea. He can create a database table to store all of the data related to his mother's collection and do so C#. Ian knows that finding the table fields is very important, and selecting the right data type for each table or for each field is critical. What data type should Yan use to store the CD label name? A, char or variable char, B, name, or C, integer.
It's definitely not B.
Not
Definitely
B.
not C either. One would hope.
So let's go with A. That sounds good. What's next, Edward?
2, what data type should be used to store the number of tracks on each CD? A, real number, B, integer, or C, char?
C
B.
is correct, although I kind of wish we could use a tiny int on it. Probably would be more efficient.
True,
I doubt there are CDs that have more than 200 tracks on them.
true. What about number 3, sir?
What data type should Yan use to store the duration of the song in total seconds? A, byte, B, integer, or C, boot?
You could probably get away with a byte on this one. But if you wanted to be paranoid, an integer would also work. Let me pull out my calculator briefly. How many seconds is 255 seconds?
It's about
60, that's
4
4.5
minutes.
minutes, so no, a byte would not in fact be long enough.
Be too small. All right. Looks good. Okay, Edward, who goes next? We need a random number generator here and just point at him, stand up and point at him and I'll say that. I know who that is. He already went.
Okay, I'll do it.
Good pointing though. Okay, do it.
Ian has gathered together all of the CDs in his mother's collection. She has more than he can imagine. He has identified the field that the data fields used in his database table and the best data type for each piece of data. So he is ready to create the database table. Yan plans to set up the table using proper ANSI SQL syntax and wants to brush up on the details before he begins. 1. Proper ANSI SQL syntax refers to a set of rules that A. Decide if the field can contain a point value or not. B. Determine the size of all the data fields. Or C. Govern the structure and content of statements.
What's syntax?
I would say C.
Does everybody agree? Yes? You do? That one's going to get you on the test. I hope you're paying attention. Number 2, number.
Which SQL command is used to add a new table? A. Create table name, etc. B. Add table name, etc. Or C. Insert table name.
C.
Add a new table.
It's A.
C would just add a row into a table, right?
I don't think it even does that.
Would it not do that? It would just
It
get
doesn't do
mad.
anything.
Just be a syntax error, so A. What about number 3?
Based on the information Yan has gathered, what data can be used for the user to access the data in the table? A. Artist name. B. CD label name. Or C. Track name.
That's not helpful.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it could be A or B, right?
Like, names of things aren't really supposed to be keys.
No. So what do you think?
I'd go with A because it's less likely that 2 artists have the same name than 2 CDs having the same name.
Yeah, that one's hard. What's everybody's guessing?
I would say B because you can have multiple CDs by the same artist.
Mm-hmm. You could.
Well, yeah, it's less likely that you'll have the same CD label name on because the label name is different words. In volume, it's less likely. There's track names, there's more tracks per CD, so there's more chance of having the same track name
On a different CD.
One has a point. Let's think about the relationships here for a moment.
You will have multiple artists that have, you have multiple CDs that have the same artist. That's
And we'll
Mhm.
have multiple tracks that have the same CD as well.
Okay, so let's say B, that sounds like the good process of elimination. And sometimes you're just going to run into questions like that where you just have to come up with what the best option is, knowing that it's not necessarily going along with all of the rules of everything being perfect. Okay, who's next? Noah, pick someone else for us here.
Beyond of learning about views in the database management class, the instructor explained that there are two approaches to creating views: command line language, T-SQL, or transact SQL, or by using a graphical designer. Yan wants to apply his new learning to the database project he's creating for his mother's CD collection. He has identified the following requirements for his application. Will use T-SQL to create views. View all CDs to sort in alphabetical order, report on all CDs, insert the number of tracks, create a list of CDs by artist, calculate a count of all CDs. What is the best application of views in T-SQL for this project?
What you think? Let's turn to your neighbor. I'm going to set my alarm for about 30 seconds. I want you to turn to your neighbor and discuss this, because we only worked with views for a day or so, and there are going to be a plethora of questions about views for you on the exam. So we now are talking to our neighbor for 30 seconds. Yes,
Before you
sir.
start that timer, can you scroll down a little bit more so I can see the entirety of question 3, please?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Okay. Please turn to your neighbor and discuss this.
Well, we know it's 7 CDs.
Create a separate out to be aware of.
That's used for CD, because the benefit of these things is just to not allow user to access things. Sometimes it's for severity, so it's best used for when it's just learning about the view tables. So if there's a summary of this particular.
Well, why is it?
Because it doesn't have the year in our test. Or
Okay, everybody's sounding like they're about done discussing. Keegan, what'd you and Clint decide? Shh, why did you pick A?
Because if you create a view for each of those, it seems like that's the only thing that even has to do with touch, which is
That's
a
true.
way to use views.
Uh-huh.
You're not really supposed to use views to create things.
That's true.
Well, I
In-
don't know, it's the only thing that even mentions the views, so it just seems like.
And remember, a view just basically is used like a table. So it gives us the option to create predefined queries with these kinds of results. And then people can just execute those views. So you're absolutely right. The other options aren't really relevant to the question because they're talking about other things. What about number 2? Read it for us. Who's our
Which of the
reader?
following is an important benefit of using views?
What do you guys think?
Because once again, A and B don't really have anything to do with views.
Sounds reasonable because we can create a summary. What about number 3?
Which code segment creates a view containing the title, artist, and year for all CDs with more than 10 tracks?
A looks very good. Does everybody agree? Good, good, good. And don't forget, we used this graphical designer early on, and then we didn't use it very much because it was kind of clunky, hard to use. Who do you want to pick to go next?
I don't know.
Do what?
Person in front of me has gone.
I've already got.
He's gone.
Person next to him, to the left. Sorry.
Have you gone? Okay. What do you think? That's a hard one. I'm not sure. See? But I could use a graphical designer for Access or some other database. Huh? It's got to be B, but some questions you'll just go, huh? All right, what about number 2, Nat? Oh, look at that. It's an access question. So if you were going to create a view using Access, and Access uses Jet SQL, which is just this another database engine that runs on the desktop. So you're going to act as though these questions aren't any different than your SQL Server questions. So what would be the correct sequence of steps to create a view? C has to be wrong because there's no way I could identify criteria before I've selected fields or anything, right? Because I can't do criteria unless I've got something
I
to
think we want,
equal to.
I'm thinking we want B,
B?
because I'm thinking about the steps in which you make an SQL query. You have your select statement first. You're creating your query effectively.
Mm-hmm.
You list the different data fields you want, or you just plug a star in there if you just want all of them.
But if it's graphical, is it going to give you all the data fields all in your database? Since it's graphical, do you think it's going to make you select your tables first? I'm thinking it's going to make me select my tables first just because it's a graphical interface, and then that way it can give me a list of columns just in those tables. Does that make sense that it would switch that?
Yeah. You're mainly selecting from a table first, and then you would specify.
Yeah, so remember, if it's a graphical query builder like that, we would have to select our tables before our columns. So a little bit of a switch. And then number 3, what criteria do we need to use to specify the CDs be displayed in alphabetical order. A, order by, yay. Okay, our last one here is creating stored procedures and functions. Nat, you want to pick somebody? Who's ready?
After having gone through the process of creating the CD collection database for his mother, Jan realized limits of this type of structure can be used for many other inventory databases. He has discovered that some common functionality is available in predefined SQL functions. By utilizing his built-in ready-to-use functions, he can increase productivity and spend time creating any other necessary user-defined functions. John has also learned to distinguish between aggregate and scalar functions. What aggregate functions can Jan use to calculate the total number of CDs in the CD collection database?
What would we use to get a total number?
Oh, I'll say it there.
Count,
Actually, yeah.
count. What about number 2?
Plus,
That's-
Jan's not quite sure how scalar functions work. Which of the following is a scalar function?
B. Is B right? What does scalar mean? Returns 1. Okay. What about number 3?
How is the stored procedure of execute?
Execute. Good. Now, number 2, they were looking for uppercase, the U case, because since it's scalar, it works on one column, is the function type. So some would return a scalar value, right? But it's an aggregate function because it aggregates all those values to return that one scalar value. Whereas U case is a scalar function because it works on one individual value. Make sense?
Question said was referencing aggregate functions.
Do I?
Because I thought the second question was referencing aggregate functions.
Right.
So I saw some, which was in the first
Exactly.
question. So yeah, I mean,
Exactly. And those are probably the only ones you guys will get wrong. Things like that. So read carefully. Okay, quit annoying you with the study guide and let you get your final done. We'll do this again next time. We'll talk about the study guide for a little while. Make sure that you're looking through the OneNote document, PowerPoints, your textbook, kind of getting in areas that we're weak on. Read through the backup chapter in your textbook. If there is not a backup chapter in this new textbook, let me know and I'll find you some stuff. But they will have some questions about backing up and restoring. They're general, so it shouldn't be a great big deal if you do take a few minutes to look over that section. Any questions before we break for lab time? Anybody got it? All right.